Well, the particular brilliance and craziness of Terry Gilliam is on display in his latest, most troubled film, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. Begun over 10 years ago, plagued by disaster, the project had to be shelved on many occasions. Now finally, Gilliam has his day. But, as usual, he's drawn to chaos, which in many ways is reflected in the film. Shooting a commercial in Spain, egocentric and indulged director Toby, Adam Driver,
Cut right there, good work.
comes across a copy of a student film he made 10 years ago about Don Quixote with amateur actors from a nearby village. Realising the village is just over the hill, he pays it a visit, only to learn that the young girl Angelica, Joana Ribeiro, he cast as Don Quixote's Dulcinea, has left home to, as her father describes it, become a whore. The bootmaker he cast as Quixote, Jonathon Pryce, has been caught up in the fantasy ever since, believing he is, in fact, the knight-errant. When he sees Toby, he believes his Sancho Panza has returned. He forces Toby to seek out adventures with him, which become ever more chaotic, ending up at the castle of a Russian oligarch, Geordie Moller, who now has Angelica as his mistress. It's an extravaganza, a bizarre, bewitching blend of literature, fantasy, contemporary references, and silliness, with sumptuous design and cinematography and fabulous landscapes. To act convincingly within such seeming idiocy, you have to give great kudos to both Jonathon Pryce and Adam Driver. Unfortunately, Gilliam doesn't entirely convince with this exhilarating, complex blend of romanticism, chivalry, and the notion of the power of dreaming, of flights of fancy. In memory of Jean Rochefort and John Hurt, both of whom were involved in the production of the film at one stage, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote is the work of an eccentric, wildly imaginative filmmaker. You see the work and you easily recognise the man behind it, and there's a certain fondness for the craziness he embroils us in. It's way too long, it's way too bizarre, but you have to admire Gilliam's persistence and his skills as a filmmaker, and also his mischievousness.
Yes, you're right that it's way too long and far too bizarre. In fact, it's almost impossible to hang with this film. It just goes on and on and on. And the two lead actors become intensely annoying as the film goes on. Adam Driver just doesn't seem to stop swearing. I've never heard so much profanity in a film, or the F word dropped with such regularity. And dear old Jonathon Pryce, his braying voice just becomes so irritating. I am Don Quixote. Over and over we get the same lines from him, and the whole thing is, I mean, you know, though as you suggest, at the same time, it's exhilarating. Some of the scenes are absolutely astonishingly clever and brilliantly shot. The trouble is they don't ever have much relationship to the scenes that follow or the scenes that go before.
That's what I mean, you know. I mean, he is drawn to chaos in a lot of ways. And, you know, I mean, what persistence, though, to, you know, keep on with this film after all this time.
The last third of the film is just terrible. The scene in the oligarch's castle is just absolutely ridiculous. There are some wonderful medieval-style commedia dell'arte sequences in it that are absolutely juicy and irresistible in their own right. But again, they have no relationship to anything else that we've seen.
That's what I mean, you know. I mean, he's a really clever filmmaker in bits and pieces. But to bring it together as a cohesive whole, I mean, it just requires a little bit more discipline, I think, to bring it down and to just bring it all together. And I don't know that he's quite achieved that. But I'm so fond of him as a person. He's the most charming man in the world, totally mischievous and funny in real life. And, you know, I so want him for this to have succeeded. So, you know, I'm going to be generous and give it 3.5 stars.
No, it's 3 from me. It's all over the place, but as you say, it's sort of quite irresistible at the same time, in parts.
Yeah.
Don Quixote de la Mancha.
Come to restore the lost age of chivalry.
Well, I wrote that.
Blasphemer!
Can I read?
A peasant like you cannot read. I will sound the words, and you can look at the pictures.